to the point where the moment we finished the final mission, and I went ahead and spent my upgrade points for what it was worth, and I was like, all right, and I deleted it.
Yeah, you had installed.
The moment we're still in game chat, and I'm like, yep, it's gone now. And you're like, wait, did you just delete it? I'm like, yes,
I hadn't
yes, I
even
did.
logged out of the game, and you'd already deleted it.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. We're a podcast about video games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, as always, Joe, and with me, the gentleman who is currently bringing fireworks to the neighborhood near you, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. Allegedly, you have to put allegedly at the end of that sentence. Yeah, if I'm not doing that. I'm bringing fire.
Candy in a van near an elementary school near you.
I,
If you see Nick in a van, go ahead and enter it.
I'm bringing Fire Space Works TM. Trademark pending. Um, in a little red wagon near you, and it's an anti-fire. It's an anti-fire. What do you call it? Like awareness campaign. So yeah.
This
Anyways,
is what not to do with explosives, and these are the things you don't want to do. So
yeah.
it's not, yeah.
And these are
Here,
the
why don't
prices
you
you
try
don't
doing the
want to.
wrong thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So don't give me money so that I don't give you these explosives.
it's a
Yeah.
training seminar, is what it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the fireworks seminars may or may not include, um, uh, definitely rather don't include trace amounts of C4 and other highly explosive material, allegedly.
Yep. Always light an MAD from a distance.
Yeah, you got to be really careful. You got to be really careful with those fireworks, people. The next time we podcast will still not be fireworks time in America, but never you can never start too early, giving people warnings and stuff. And also, don't make your own fireworks at home. Don't make your own. There's people that are paid not enough, but still more than you to make those things. And it's harder than it looks. So just let the professionals handle it.
Yeah, that's actually really good words there. I think it's the only time I ever really quote unquote, won anything like big was I was a kid and we were going through a couple states to visit family, and on the way we stopped by a place, and they had like a Wheel of Fortune type of thing. Just spin the wheel. It was a huge, like 4 foot tall wheel, and they had pretty much like 1 inch little tick marks as the thing went, and I landed on the 1 inch grand prize marker of $200 worth of fireworks. and this is like $200 worth of fireworks, and this was something like in the mid 90s. So $200 went even further back then, and my old man was like, yeah, so can we just get that in cash? They're like, no, gotta be fireworks.
No.
So we just loaded the back of our minivan with all these fireworks. Luckily my grandparents lived out in their own little, like, in the countryside on this farm at the time, and every night we just went ahead and had our little mini fireworks show, and it was like a good half hour we killed like every night for like a week. So
And
yeah,
and
it was
that's
pretty
why
fun.
the gotcha rolls for the rest of your life have been utter dog poo poo.
Yep. I used up all my luck on that one silly thing that I can barely remember. Though I do remember lighting a bottle rocket, it going off the dock into their pond, and it just going bloop 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 bloop, bloop, and then all of a sudden bloop, and I'm like, and then yeah, like oof, that was it was one of those things that the timing couldn't have been better. The only thing that made it funnier is like a fish float up or something like that, but it was like And then
If you
I
like
remember we
sniped a
lit
fish, that would be pretty cool, actually.
we I think oh yeah we lit some like what looked like just like spinning tops, and we're like, oh yeah, this is just a little thing here, and all of a sudden what we weren't ready for is it to take off and then it fly towards my grandparents' house. We're like, oh no, and then luckily didn't make it, but we're like, oh man, that would have been that'd have been something. So yeah, also make sure you know what your fireworks do before you light them, and make sure you're pointing Roman candles in the right direction. uh
At your siblings. Yeah. That's a joke.
uh
That's not serious. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Make sure to read the instructions, people. Yeah.
all right. Well, yeah, so I guess we're going to talk about or continue to talk about what we've been playing. So last week we talked a little bit about FBC Firebreak and just our, intro thoughts, first couple missions, and we've essentially beat the game, as it were, if you want to call it a game, or beat, because there's nothing really to signify that it ended. But yes, we completed the missions. Uh, so why don't you kick us off and what you've been thinking about, your thoughts and whatnot.
So we did. So what were these groups of missions called? Are they just called levels? Is
Uh,
or
uh,
were they? I didn't trying to. I've been trying to think of it, and every time I go to think of it, I forget before I can actually Google it. But these groups of missions, cases, I feel like that's part of it. We went to level 4, and spoilers a little bit. I'll go ahead and say, not that there's much story to spoil, but it's a bunch of. Now that I think about it, it's a bunch of pink blobs that are stuck to everything, and that's pretty much the same mechanic as the post-it notes. So that makes it less. That makes it like more underwhelming than it sort of was when I first started. I guess they work a little bit better because they're a little bit different because they slow you down as you run through them. I don't think the post-it notes did that. I don't think. But so
yeah, I don't know what happened if you ever gotten overtaken because we never got overtaken. But with the post notes, at least if you get overtaken
you
in
get turned into a
paper,
post-it note man, right?
yeah, like a monster, yeah, and
Yeah.
you kind of your body runs off. So you're talking about the mission called Frequency Shift.
Yes.
Was the mission
Yes.
we were on?
And so with that one, my two notes for that level for frequency shift is that it was buggy, and we had to figure that out kind of the hard way, and then looked up to see if other people were having bug issues, and they were. And then beyond that, there was a difficulty spike in it. Beginning, not so much, but once you get to that third section, it's like, oh, we're going to spike the difficulty, and we're not really going to tell you, hey, you need to kind of change your strategy. So we ended up having to do it twice, which isn't really all that big of a deal, I suppose. But
It was
um,
the only time we failed, but the reasoning for the failing was the substance, the blobs that are literally covering your corridors, your aisles, they are spawning. They got to like the first couple sections in the game. So each map has 3 sections. The first 2 sections are fine. By section 3, it started to if you over time the blob will respawn, but they were spawning faster, like immediately after you destroy it, or eventually got to the point where they were spawning faster than you can destroy it. So you would clear a corridor because you couldn't move forward, and we were stuck within a safe room, and
mm,
because we were stuck in the safe room trying to clear our way out, the wave of enemies would spawn. But by the time we actually cleared enough to kill the enemies, the next wave of enemies would spawn. So it wasn't a difficulty spike per se, but it was the fact that we were stuck there long enough that the enemies were starting to compound on us because we hadn't made any progress, and more enemies were just waiting outside the door or just around the corner.
yeah, we were.
Uh,
I mean, I don't know about you, but I was expecting the waves to peter out and then for us to be able to continue on. And it was when we were basically running out of ammunition in the safe room and lives, to some degree, and that it was like, oh, okay, so this is not really maybe the way that the develop. I mean, we're not playing this right, or this isn't really the way the developers maybe intended it to come out. And that was kind of the way that I was leaning, because it was just like everything else up until then was okay. Do it this way. Do it this way. Do it this way. Um, and we were just sort of stuck. And by the time we kind of figured that out, that we probably should have just pushed through, then it was kind of too late, and we were doomed more or less. But you
Yeah.
know, to their credit, we were able to break through once we knew, okay, we just got to gun it, and and just keep clawing our way through, and we'll be able to make it. And we did, So I guess that's one thing.
Though I think it was, but it's still broken at the end
Yeah.
too, because the final segment that you clearing off, you're supposed to fix a bunch of components on these monitors, and then uh, it's like it's partially busted again, and then you're supposed to fix it again. Problem is we died. We had to then quick run our way there. By the time we got there again, from the safe room, the terminal was completely covered in um, the pink goo, and when I tried to clear it, every time I literally shot a bullet, it would burst and then instantly spawn again. Though luckily I was able to run up in like just right up against the pink goo, and it still let me activate the terminal.
Okay.
So I was technically being blocked. I was able to
You were
do the
stuck in
sequence, and
it,
then it cleared. Yeah, and then
but
it let me
yeah.
clear the elevator, and then we just ran for it. We just as fast as you could shoot, and it spawned. Because it start to the stuff you shot on the floor would then spawn, and it would push you to the ceiling, and it would start to pin you or start to come down, and so it was like kind of like playing Counter Strike, where I was just constantly jumping and shooting
Right.
to make my way through these
Oh,
corridors.
see, that's one mission where I don't know what your shotgun level was at, but that was one mission where I think it would have benefited us to both have a shotgun, because with a shotgun, it was difficult whenever the pink blobs were popping off at full tilt, but I was able to, because of the spread fire, I think, clear enough in front of me fast enough to be able to move forward. Um, and you had the
I was
pistol.
using the revolver. I
Yeah.
was using the revolver at level 2, but that had at least had, the penetration matter, so I was able to shoot through multiple layers of,
Okay, then maybe that helped you.
things, or shoot multiple enemies in a row. That's the main reason why I rolled with the revolver, because it was, like, the first thing before. So we should also say they did do a patch update after our last podcast, and we noticed immediately that they changed the enemy difficulty. They decided to change how the currency was spent. All the cosmetics were removed into its own separate corner, so you weren't forced to buy cosmetics in order to level up to the next gear progression.
Which was a smart move
Um,
on their
and
part.
it really was. But at the same time, so like I was rolling with my revolver, and the revolver lets you like penetrate through enemies, so you can hit two, maybe three enemies if they're standing in a row. And because a lot of times the basic enemies will just swarm directly at you,
Hmm.
and plus I was able to like one shot down the flying chair enemies, almost guaranteed. So and there was enough auto assist with the aiming. I'm not sure if that I never looked at it enough. I didn't know if it can tweak it or not. But so long as I was close enough, because I'm like, there's no way
Something that I
I'm
played recently has auto assist. I think it is, this game has a tweakable auto assist aim thing.
okay, because yeah, because I just know that when I wasn't looking down sights, but I was just, and so long as my crosshair was close enough, I'd fire, and it was giving me the hit, and I'm like, I know I'm not that good, so I knew it was assisting me there. I mean, and I think it's fair enough to a certain point, but anyways, so they did a number of better updates, and I think these just some of the enemies do take a bit more damage. There was only one particular enemy that was temperamental, and it was this pipe wielding enemy who has a weak point of like a monster coming out of its back. So the ideal is someone baits them, and then the other player can then aim better at their back, or you have to down stun them or down them in some way. So like get water and then use electricity to shock them for a moment. They'll take a knee, and if you are full, then switch up your weapons, and then you can just quickly unload at that little creature coming from its back. But for some reason, there's a red spot on the creature's chest, so an extra weak point. And sometimes that was really effective, and sometimes it really wasn't. Sometimes you could take it out in just a couple shots, and other times I felt like I had to reload a handful of times. So it was kind of iffy there, and that
For,
was the only enemy that gave us a real big problem because the distance it could cover in one swing was pretty far, and it was pretty devastating on its attack if
and
it
that
landed.
like AoE
So
effect of it slamming down, I'm like, okay, I'm clear of that as it slams down, but it does like a invisible blast radius, and I'm like, and I because I got severely damaged or even killed by it a couple times, and I was kind of like, that just feels, if not cheap, it's just not clear. Even just a little bit of coloring, like blue or red coloring emanating out from that AoE type effect would have gone a long way to let me know, okay, I was in the blast radius. Okay, I need to watch out for that. Just something to make it a little bit more clear. With that guy, once I started to um, not waste any ammunition at all on shooting any other part except for the red hiss that was glued to the back. I was like, that's when I became much more successful at downing that one. It still was a chore and I'd still get killed a lot, but like once I was like, okay, I just cannot spend any time or ammunition on anything other than that red thing on the back. That's when it helped me a lot.
yeah, and the game is like that, especially with that particular enemy. They when they get in, if you are in a safe room grabbing ammo or filling up in health, and then they get in there, their attacks take up a wide range of a little box. So it becomes a kind of like the floor is lava trying to run away from them in a
Mm-hmm.
tight space. But like that was the only enemy that was consistently a nuisance. I would say everything else was either relatively easy or like fair game, except for like the unique event, like the pink goo problem, or in the mission before it was ground control, where you're bringing like radioactive material essentially to like the rocket, and you had to shoot a bunch of orbs from the ceiling, and then occasionally radioactive material comes out. The moment you pick it up and you start carrying it, you just start getting saturated with radiation, and then it gets to a certain point where you start to get sick and your health starts to tick down. The radiation will go away over time, or you have to run to a health station. And unfortunately, if you're standing next to someone who's putting away the radiation, like they're carrying it, you get poisoned from it as well from that fallout. And it takes a little longer than I would like, or it affects you quicker than I would like it to, and it takes a little too long for it to go away. So it feels like it was a tedious chore for just cleaning these things up, and it's like, all right, it's taking longer just because you have to wait for the radiation sickness to drop down, and then you can grab it again and do the same thing. And it's just okay. It was just very much more busy work than it really needed to be.
Busy work
The
is a
mission really was,
good name for this stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and that's essentially the whole thing. It's like, we joked about it being just a cleaning simulator last time, and that's kind of what it is. Is it's just janitorial duty, on excess.
And not like funny about it. There's a ton of like really good jokes about it being a thankless job or something like that that you could make. They're not in this game, at least not very much or not prominently. Or they're, I mean, there's some things they say in the background, but it's never really funny enough for me to feel like I need to pay attention to it or to look forward to it. So yeah, but there's a world in which that kind of stuff could be implemented and would make this game have a lot more, personality. The kind of personality that you have come to expect from a Remedy game. Um, the other thing was level 5 is a little bit. I'm trying to think if it's really that much different or if it just sort of is different in my mind.
So it's that one's called freezer duty.
Freezer duty. So with this one, it has to do with the cold stuff, and there are these stationary monsters I will call them, that they're like kind of like, it looks like a sphere of like broken ice or whatever, and you have to take these propane heaters, flamers essentially, flamethrowers, and configure them to get them started, and then go set them, either carry them into the thing right up against it, or set it next to it, or set multiple ones next to it. I could never get a consistent feel for the way that it was supposed to work. I was able to kill one early on by basically walking a heater right up to it and just holding it there. I tried that again later, and it didn't really work. You weren't able to do it on the first one that you encountered, but later on, you were able to. You were the only one between us that was able to get them later. Um,
Like consistently, yeah.
yeah, consistently. I watched what you were doing, listened to what you were saying to do, did that to another one where I stacked three heaters. So each of these heaters has three flamethrowers going on it. I stacked three heaters, each with three flamethrowers against one, which is something that you had done, and it still didn't work. So I feel like either that's bugged or not communicated as to how to really get rid of those things,
So these ice
adequately.
crystals, essentially, it remind me of in Neon Genesis Evangelion, the fifth angel Ramil, which is the floating diamond as it as it's coming down. So
Okay, yeah.
right when it gets killed, the thing uh becomes all spiky and it screams before it explodes. And that spikiness before, like, the thing freaks out before it dies. And that's kind of what these abnormalities look like, but they're just emitting cold, like freezing temperatures from it. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't this mission wasn't very good at telling you exactly what you needed to do. Um, and it was just very awkward is the best way to explain it, because you're spending your time trying more time trying to figure out how to get this done right, because it's like the you're hearing the caption or the narration in the background like, yeah, you got to get right up on it, it's not comfortable but you got to do it. And I'm like, okay, so you're standing like right in it, and like with the heater jumping up and down, nothing's happening. Sometimes it happens, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's kind of changing color, I'm just gonna sit here for a while, and that's not enough to do it. So eventually, like, I think we took one out by throwing like four heaters at it, and then eventually destroyed. Other times I would run up to it and just myself, and I was able to destroy it. So it wasn't consistent, because I tried doing things the same way. I'm like, nope, all right. So it was
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, once again, it was messy. It was very underwhelming. And then the very last bit of that level, it was like you running around, and they're like, there's like, yeah, like you got to put the mannequins on the ski lift. And I'm like, okay, it's like it's like there's nowhere on the map that's saying where the mannequins are. We haven't come across a mannequin at this point yet, or at least we didn't think we did. And so it took us a while before you found it. We just ran around looking for these mannequins, and it took the better part of the last section for us to find. And then you did finally find one. And then after we looked around, we were able to find them more regularly. Well, actually, you're the one who's finding most of them, and then I just ended up uh, taking out the enemies that ran by. I mean, they had a neat thing in this level because it was just every now and then the chairlift, because it was really an awkward hangar. It was like a storage area, and they had just a ski lift rotating, and I guess that would be the object of power um
Okay, yeah.
that they're holding. So every time and like it made sense afterwards that the
Same.
ski lift, every time it went by, it was causing cold damage as it went in a circle. So you would
Oh,
start to slow down because you're like, "Oh no, another wave of cold," but that's because the ski lift was coming above your head. And they had like oil on the floor, and I went ahead and checked it out. I just shot my pistol into this oil slick, and then a fire happened. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So if I wanted to either create, like thaw myself out, so I didn't suffer the slowness, or if I wanted to try to catch the enemy on fire, that would work too. This is like the only time that this also really helped us because the enemy would slow down due to the cold. causing them to swing and just overall move slower. So the big guys that we were having with the pipes, with the creatures from their back, we were able to take them out much quicker that way as well. Um, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we threw in the last, last mannequin on the ski lift, and then it's just like run your way back, and that's exactly what we did. And it's just like, yeah, you're done, and like it just ended. I was like, oh, that's it, like no, like it had such minimalistic fanfare. Um, I understand that it's supposed to be like a service game, right? So you don't expect a story when you're playing an average game of Fortnite or like PUBG or something like that. You're just playing the mission to play the mission. I understand that. This is a Remedy game, and you're basing it off like an IP that exists that is nothing but lore and story.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the part where it's like that's why I'm expecting more from it. I'm expecting something from it.
Mm.
And as you mentioned, the jokes aren't there. The only time the jokes are there is when you're in the lobby upgrading your gear. You'll hear someone in the background being like, "Hey, how about this idea? How about the FBC Firebreak theme song or something like that?" And he goes like, or he said he doesn't say theme song. He says something so different, like a different song. But anyways, a fight song or something. He goes, and then the boss being, "Hey, so long as I don't have to sing it." And then
Yeah.
like so like silly things like that kind of happen barely, and you're like, but that's the only time you get any flavor is the best way to explain it. Everything else is just there.
Two
um
disembodied voices that from people that you never see. One of them is telling you what to do, and so it kind of makes sense that you would never see him. But the other one is like, where's where's this guy? Where's this other guy? Yeah, yeah, yeah. The like the Control and Remedies games. Like what is it? I don't know what it is to you, but to me, it's probably like 70% of the value, maybe just 60%, but a significant portion of the value of those games is from the writing content and sort of what the story that they have to tell me, the flavor text of things. And this game is bereft of that. It just doesn't. It just doesn't have that. To me, like you put it best when you said it's undercooked. To put a finer point on that, to me this game is is in a polished alpha phase. Um, I'm not a game designer, but from what I understand about game design, the traditional definition of an alpha is that the bare minimum of the game is there, but major pillars of the game and gameplay are still missing, and content is nowhere near completion. It's like content complete. It's like sub 50%, more like 30% content complete, and this feels like that to me. This feels like, okay, there's probably two or three more major pillars of this gameplay that need to be there. There's probably you probably need like the amount of content that is there right now should comprise maybe 20% of the overall content of the game, and that might be even generous. So yeah, that's sort of where I think that the game is, and so I think that they kind of got away with one. To be completely honest, I think that with that, I think it has like a 60 61, 60 something on Metacritic. It's got mixed reviews. I don't know what percent that goes from or to on Steam. I think that's generous. And there's a little story that going to steal from the news. We're not going to talk about it, at least. I don't have a plan to, but they said that they topped 1 million players. And for a semi free to play but not really free to play game, to me, for what they have tried to get by the public, this is a massive success. I mean, this is like Dunkirk.
so
This is like your whole this is like your whole army is exposed to the enemy, and you get away clean. Yeah, that's That's where I think that they are with this game.
Yeah, when it comes to this is very much if this was only on Steam, this is without a doubt an early access game. This is an early access game for $40, which would be way too expensive for an early access game with no visible roadmap. I mean, they have one allegedly, but we haven't seen their future roadmap. If it was a real early access game, they'd be like, "Hey, this is what we plan on doing in the future. Look forward to these things down the road." Where in reality, they're like, we're coming up with some stuff down the road. Don't worry. And then they can, at any given point, they can bail on that and be like, we got your money already. We're good. This is, as you mentioned before too, this deludes their property. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
you're expecting certain quality from Remedy. You expect, well, especially with Alan Wake to Control, like the most recent stuff. You're like, okay, this is their cinematic universe they're making, right? They're making the extended Remedy universe. They have really good writing. They have all this good quality, pieces to it, and Control was a fun game. But what made it exceptionally fun were, granted the visuals, they got to play around with the medium, but it's the story. The story is king, and it was just the way they did it. And so I'm like, okay, playing this multiplayer game in the oldest house, that could have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could have done a lot, but unfortunately, it is the most bare bones, generic, wave based shooter cleaning simulator. And like once again, like you mentioned, the pink between the pink goo and the post notes, it's the exact same thing, pretty much. And it's what are you gonna do? Like your job is to either sprinkle water on a bunch of post-it notes, and then have someone follow you with electric shock, shocking it, but then eventually have to stop because you're getting too much electrical damage, stunning yourself, or taking bullets and shooting them at post-it notes. I'm like, because that's really fun. I mean, it's it's monotonous. It deserves, yeah, it deserves the 6 out of 10 or whatever it's gotten. I believe it deserves less. It deserves to get harsher and harder criticisms because you expect more from them, and that's what makes it disappointing. If it was any third party company or brand new group, I'm like, all right, I'm not expecting anything from you, and guess what? I wouldn't even touch it. To have and to inflate those numbers of a million players, well, considering the fact that Game Pass has it available, PlayStation Plus. Extras and premium has it available. You have majority of your players probably playing it because of one of those two things. I'm not sure. I'm curious to see what the actual sales are. Uh, but once again, it's not a broken game, except for except for the one mission. But like other than that, it is a game you can play. Uh,
Well, some of
it
those
is
million players
enjoyable.
paid $40 for it. You
Yeah,
know,
I know, and that sucks for them. Um, those are the diehards who really
the
just
real ones.
believe in Remedy.
Pour one out
Yeah,
for the guys that paid $40 for this. Yeah.
I'll buy it when it's like, $5 on super sale a year from now. But just to have it in my catalog with the rest of the Remedy stuff, right?
Well,
Um,
and this is one of those things where it's like people talk about how video game nerds are famous for being, um, what is the term? Like having like allowing like no grace, and being really, um, just quick to decry any kind of bad thing in a game, no matter how small, nitpick everything. And the fact that this game is not being raked over the coals, now that I've seen all of it, and have had time to stew on it, it's surprising to me that this game should be. It's amazing that it's not being treated worse than it is. I'm just very surprised at that. I don't think this game deserves even like a 60 on Metacritic. It's probably more in the 50s or 40s, just because of what they're trying to get by. I think people are just forgetting that it's a $40 game. This is it's easy because everybody who probably reviews games, or I mean, not that they're not doing their job, but maybe they're not quite paying attention. Maybe a lot of the Metacritic reviewers are just kind of user reviews and they're not really paying attention or something. and they're just playing it on a service that they're already paying for. Um, but this is a $40 game, and it's a crying shame that they're charging that much
Yeah.
for it.
Now, if they came out with a $20 price point, for the selling the hopes and ideals that it's going to get better over time,
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. Once again, that's more of the early access price point you'd expect. Like, okay, Remedy's coming out with this thing. Here's your first taste. It's going to be officially launched down the road, for $20. Most definitely go to support them. Uh, but once again, this is their full fledged thing, and it's very disappointing, to the point where the moment we finished the final mission, and I went ahead and spent my upgrade points for what it was worth, and I was like, all right, and I deleted it.
Yeah, you had installed.
The moment we're still in game chat, and I'm like, yep, it's gone now, and you're like, wait, did you just delete it? I'm like, yes,
I hadn't
yes, I
even
did.
logged out of the game, and you'd already deleted it. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'll delete it too. I would have did that.
I mean,
Anyway,
if it's still free on Game Pass or on PlayStation Plus, and if they do any meaningful updates, we'll come back to it. My save file's still there, but I'm not sticking around to play in that world again, especially when I have like Helldivers.
yeah.
For the lack of story, I like
I mean,
Helldivers provides infinite more entertainment.
I hope it survives. I hope that it becomes wildly successful, even if it's a game that I don't like and don't want to play. If they just go a different route with it. I really hope it does become wildly successful because Alan Wake and their other good games, are not as profitable as we wish they were. They sell well and they're very good and they're highly acclaimed, but like, the bottom line on those games comes out pretty raw. Because they have to put so much into it. So if this game can become a cash cow for them, and they can avoid getting too greedy and just going all in on it, then I would hope that it would be able to fund some of their more critical darling projects that we actually do like.
Yeah. Once again, it's the reason why we're so critical of them is because we love everything that Remedy does. This is just such a letdown for like what we expect from them. And hey, if they turn around and they drop some massive lore content nuggets, or like connect it somehow, do an actual solid gameplay loop or something like that, I am more than happy to eat my words. And I like I said, I hope they do turn this around. But just in the grand scheme of real business, I'm like, I feel like there's no one with real passion guiding this ship, and so
Yeah.
it's just like,
Well,
they're just leaving it as is.
there's a bumper sticker I saw a long time ago that said, "Dissent is the greatest form of patriotism," and I think that's true. And we're the true Remedy patriots, saying like, "Hey, this sucks." We want to like this game. We would have never paid attention to this game if we didn't like your other games a lot. We gave Alan Wake our game of the year in the year that it came out, Alan Wake 2. So, do it for us. Do it for us.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the other game that we've been playing. At least we'll talk about it a little bit. So yeah, you recently picked up Alters.
Yeah, the altars. Notably, this game is $35, and is a hell of a lot better than FBC Firebreak. I'm not going to talk too much about my full thoughts on the altars. I am 15 hours into it, maybe a little bit more, because I think the PlayStation time counter has a bit of a lag to it sometimes. So I'm gonna kind of let you lead for where you are, and I'm gonna kind of talk about that stuff. But yeah, like 15 hours in, probably have another 5 or so hours, maybe 7 hours if I slow play things. If I'm just kind of guessing, but I'm thinking that's probably about how much time I have left. Whereas FBC Firebreak, we logged what 7 hours, and we're done with it. So yeah, as far as a money proposition, um, I can say the altars is much better for the time being. But yeah, initial thoughts on the altars is I really do like this game a lot, and I'm going to go into more depth on that next week after I presumably have beaten it. So for now, I'd actually like to hear what you have to say about it.
All right. So for those who don't know anything about the Altars, it's a sci-fi game, kind of sci-fi survival base building game. That is to boil it down, very minimalist. The story is you crash land on uh, a new planet, and you are then looking for your crew. Uh, Worst case scenario happens where you are now alone and you have this giant drop ship or your moving station, which is a giant wheel with cargo containers in the middle, and it is up to you to get this thing running, because once the sun comes up you're cooked. So you need to find the resources you need to get the station functional again. um, and upon searching the area, you find your unobtainium, wonderflonium, and in this case, it's called rapidium. This the magical mystery ore of this universe. So rapidium is this ore that's supposed to be able to. It's called like the time element, I think is what they call it in the flavor text. Because this game does have a lot of like other text to read as well. I think I put about 3 to 4 hours into this game so far, and uh, the the adventuring. I'll start off with the adventuring outside the base real quick. So the movement is. I was surprised on how fast you move. I'm really happy you move at a good speed. So you're in a bulky spacesuit and you run, or your standard movement is a pretty good jog. Like, and then there's a run feature which lets you go even faster. Which I'm like, okay, cool, because I just thought like as I was moving with my thumbstick, I'm like, oh, this was you automatically start with auto run. That's wonderful. And then it gave me the prompt, hold R1 to run. I'm like, oh, awesome! I can go even faster now.
Really cook.
So, yeah, I was like, all right, that's great. You're not wasting my time lumbering around. Even though that's more realistic because you have a giant bulky spacesuit. I'm like, I don't care. I just give me speed. Make traversal enjoyable. Um, you're finding you get to find a few elements that you need. You get to find some random cargo, which kind of gives you it's a personal effects. Like you find a Swiss Army knife of yours that has a history to it, and you find like a rubber ducky and stuff like that. And
Okay.
they have a little neat story beats to it. Uh, then where the game really pops off is the station itself. So yes, you're supposed to maintain, fix up the station, maintain it. You have a contact in the beginning. So once again, everything very minimal spoilers for the very beginning opening parts of the game. Like so if this sounds interesting to you, great, then you can continue on. Next week we'll probably go more into a spoiler territory, but this is all very minimal stuff for the beginning of the game that I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, you have your areas such as your the captain's quarters. You have communication room, and these are all think any base builder like the Fallout base building game they had, or there's a few other things that come to mind that I just can't quite think off the top of my head. But it's your station is built out in grids, and everything is either like a form of a rectangle for the most part, and you can freely with no like cost, which is nice. They're not penalizing you. You can just adjust the cargo containers and remap anything how you see fit. Um, so a little bit of it is like a means of like Tetris, where like, well, I want to build this new add-on to the ship, but I don't have enough space either to the left or the right. So then I have to put it above. And if I put it above, that means I have to get elevator access to it. So that means I have to build an elevator for it or rearrange everything. And it costs So to build modules, it costs you resources, but to freely rearrange it however you see fit, that doesn't. So that makes it really smooth, real easy. The only weird part about it is you can't put a module. Modules have to be touching each other. So what
Okay.
I've done is, if I wanted to move a space, a couple, I mean, I didn't try it. There is a grid off screen, away from ship that might be able to hold certain like extra, you put stuff for temporary storage. But what I did was I wanted to move the captain's quarters, or actually I forget. I wanted to move one of the segments a couple spaces to the left. I couldn't just drop it mid space because so what I did was I connected another part to where I needed it, and then I put the third part there. Removed the center panel. Now it's literally floating in space. The end cap is floating in space, and I got to rearrange what I needed to and put it there. But that was like my workaround is, so long as you connecting things out, uh, then you can remove any piece you want. I don't know, but you won't have access to it. So obviously, you still have to have a connecting means to get to your section. But uh, it's just because the way the space was limited, I wasn't able to move the pieces I needed at that time. So I kind of worked it and janked it my way, but it was like it was relatively easy, pretty smooth. The only times is sometimes if you want to move down like one tick or over a tick, sometimes it'd go a couple ticks over. So I'm like, all right, it's a little, maybe a little too sensitive or not sensitive enough, I guess,
I have
depending on
had
how you
that
look at it.
same thing. Yeah.
So, but outside of that, the base building is kind of there. So if you have, and if you want to optimize it in a certain way, or if you like your own like feng shui, like I think the captain's quarters should be next to the kitchen or something like that. You can make that happen. Um, it's like, or like I want a corridor. I think the flavor text for the corridor is like, because you like you always need a corridor or something like that. And so like, yeah,
Yeah.
if I want to aesthetically have a space between me and someone else, I'm like, yeah, I'll just put a corridor there. Just anyways, but what it does do is, as you're building, it does do resource management where you're building more units to your ship, which means then you need more fuel because the weight of your
Right.
ship is higher,
Which
which means you
is
have to then grab, yeah.
where I go like corridor. Like corridors would be nice, but I don't want to spend the amount. I don't want to spend the fuel to transport that corridor when I get rolling again. And so that and elevators. Like I think I had an extra elevator at one point, basically an extra elevator floor, essentially, and it looked better. But when I came down to needing to move on, it was like, oh, I need to get rid of that because it will help me get a little bit closer to the the fuel goal that I need to hit.
Yeah, and one of the things they did was they said, like, there's like, in order to get to, like the elevator, they had an elevator in the main couple of floors, and then they had an elevator starting off the side that went down to the storage units. I'm like, first thing I'm gonna do is I move those elevators straight, and I moved all the elevators in one straight line, and I moved the storage units. So I'm like, they're all on the bottom. I'm like, get the stuff I'm not using out of the way, and I had everything more as streamlined as I possibly could for myself. Um, Now, where the story really kicks off is because it's like, hey, you have, I think it's like 8 days, 8 in-game days to get your ship up and running, or else the sun's gonna rise and cook you. Um, I kind of wish I just sat there just to see what happens. Maybe I should restart it up again and just see what happens if you fail that opening event.
Mm,
And what happens is your character has a day cycle, and you can run around collecting things. And I mean, I guess if you're not, if you take your time, it'll be difficult, but it's pretty, the first opening area is pretty simple. There's not really a whole lot there for you, as far as things in question. And in order to get the ship running, it turns out you need more help. uh, and this is where the big twist, or the big crux of the game is now that you have this magical ore called rapidium, like they need you to confirm that, hey, it's an actual, it's legit what it is, because it's like, it's a theorized element apparently at this point. No one actually has it obtained it at this point. So they're like, yes, we have a DNA sequence. Go to the cloning machine essentially and make this thing work. And you're like, okay, well, God, what's going to be? And then it turns out to be a sheep. And he's like, oh yeah, of course it's a sheep, you know. Um, and then you could pet the sheep and you get a trophy for it.
as well, you should.
So
So they did the right thing
yeah,
there.
And then in order to, uh, but they give you captain commands because you're the only one left. And then you get to see. It turns out they have your whole DNA like history, your actual history mapped out. Which I kind of wish it like that's a lot of text to read through.
Yeah, it is, and I have read through it. The more
Yep.
you read, the more you read earlier, the less you. I mean, you never have to read all of it, but the less you. I felt like I had to read later. One thing I will say, a little bit of a note on the story. So the Rapidium is basically the fuel for what you're trying to do, kind of the magic that you're trying to make happen. But the way that they get around it, in a kind of in a bit more like they kind of link it to a more practical side is the onboard computer is a quantum computer. And so they're like, so we take this Rapidium and we talk to the quantum computer, and then it, because it's quantum, it looks at all of the things that basically could have happened but didn't. And that is how we get to what is sort of going to happen next.
Yes, and so you can see all the pivotal points in your life, from when you were a child. Times you've seen people being bullied and you ran away. You come from a broken home. How your main character, had decided to more or less run away from home, uh, and to go to college, and you took the career path. You found the love of your life, and you tried. You went after money, and like it led you eventually your life path led you to going on a buying the propaganda of a company and being like, go to space and find this wonder material. What could go wrong, essentially. And that's kind of the your background story. uh well, what then they do is this quantum computer says, hey, uh we can get you a different version of yourself. And instead of going to college, you stuck around. And when you stuck around, you became a technician, because you did the blue collar line. And then there's a whole different story arc from the branching path of whether or not you went to college or not. Um, and that's where it gets interesting because you essentially get to clone yourself, and you get to argue with yourself. And you your copy, or your alter, as it were, they they have emotions, and they have like you get to regulate or see what happens when you talk with them about how they have motivation, or if they're rebellious, if their joy or anxiety, stuff like that. So depending on how you interact with them will change their overall attitude. uh, and this is where I think the real story begins, because it's enjoyable to see how you react with yourself and your overall outlook in the game, how your characters and their life. Uh, one of the first things, because at this point in the story, your character mother had passed away,
Mhm.
and so the one of the first things your clone asks is like talks about, wait, is mom still around? And then they're like, no, unfortunately, she's not. But like the the kind of concept, the kind of person that you are. um and then eventually I'm not much further beyond this. Essentially, it's like you get to your next location, you have your next hurdles, and it just kind of build and repeat. But it's about interacting with the story, and then of course with the balance of maintaining the base and doing errands. Every new altar you have will have a different skill set. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the kind of the concept of this game is mostly based on, um, it's like a light novel. It's about the story beats. They
Mm.
just throw in the balancing of survival and mechanics and stuff. Just it's a good distraction or a break from the story. But I feel like it's almost not needed. I mean, yes, it does provide more game, because a lot of people don't like the idea of playing just a story simulator. But I think the idea of interacting with the people around you and dealing with the pressures of those
Hmm.
people, I think that's where the fun is, and that's where this their skill of the writing comes in. Um, it's there's other things in there, like, some of the people you talk to that are at the command post, like, that are overseeing your adventure. They're the ones who get your overseers, as it were. um
Okay.
so like, I I'm still early on, and already, just like, I can already see where this game is going, and I'm really into what they're selling me. And once again, for $35,
Yeah.
that's a freaking fair price.
Yeah. So yeah, like I kind of see what you're saying. I like the level of like gameplay side of this because it reminds me of what I've seen from like a No Man's Sky or an Astroneer. Um, Nowhere near that level of like crazy, complicated, robust, and all that stuff. It's like a very light version of that. But to me, it's been pretty much just enough to balance out with a really good story to kind of like link it together. I'll say that sometimes early on, really probably about from where you are to about the 6 hour point in the game, there's there's just a little bit too much talky bits as opposed to like dewy bits. It's not horrible, but I just remember being like getting into more of the mechanics, the base building, the mineral farming and stuff like that, mineral mining. And stuff like that. That I was like, dang, I just want to go do that. And they're like, hang on a second, here's somebody that wants to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then, okay, hang on a second, there's one person, and here's another thing. And then finally, I kind of broke through that, and it was never bad, but it became more balanced to where I was like, okay, I've kind of had my fill of the outside stuff, come back and do the interpersonal stuff, had my fill of that, and then just in time to kind of go back out and do more of the outside farming and stuff like that. So, so that is one sort of very tiny thing that I was like, it was never bad. I was just impatient to go play more of the game at some points fairly early on. Um,
The things, yeah, the only real knock against it I had was, the running timer is one thing, but
oh yeah,
it's kind of it's so this game has a day cycle, like, and then what happens is, after you run out, you have a stance where you're tired, and you can no longer do things as efficiently. So, as if you're trying to build an item, cook food, something like that, you're not doing it as efficiently as you would be normally. And then after that, you run into being exhausted. You can collapse, apparently. And then you wake up later in the day, kind of making it worse for your next day in. One of the things I did like, though, is like, when you set up a mining rig out in the field, you can use that as a quick teleport node, which is awesome. I
yes.
was like, oh, you set that up for me right away. I'm like, that's great, and especially in that first area, it's not really needed, but I'm like, it's just super nice to have that available. It didn't really, at least I don't think it told me, but like, I built the unit. And I thought it was going to do it automatically, but what I didn't realize was, upon the next day, I'm like, oh, I got to go out there and use the unit and hold it and activate it, and it
Hmm.
speeds up time. I'm like, okay, great. So I did that for that day. Went back to the base, and then they're like, okay, you're ready to fire up the machine. And I went to fire up the machine. Some stuff is happening and some stuff is going wrong. And then I'm looking and I'm like, oh, and it's nighttime. So I just stop. I had to stop the story right there, run, go to bed, wake up the next morning, and finish the next cycle. I'm like, this is dumb. Like, and so what I found
Huh.
myself doing is, I'll often have to pause, or if you go into the menu system, you can then it tells you what your current task is in the upper right corner of your screen. But if you're going to stand there and try to look at it and read it, your timer is ticking down. So what you have to do is, you have to go into your menu, tab over to your tasks, read your tasks, and go, like, do everything from the menu system. Uh,
Mm,
or you have to
yes.
pause the game.
Yes. What
Yeah.
like that is one thing that when you're talking to somebody, so you're getting story dialogue or whatever, and then also when you're in the menu, the day timer stops. And so anytime that I mean, this is sort of second nature. I didn't really feel like I had to remind myself to do it, but like anytime that I would be standing somewhere and I didn't quite know what to do exactly like what I was going to do in the next moment, I hit pause or go to the menu and look around for a bit and then decide what I'm going to do. And because basically when I'm not in the menu system, I'm running. Like I am just like full out running to the next thing.
Yeah. So that was the only like quirk or like that I was like not keen on, I guess. I understand you have to have the timer keep on running, but like I said, I'm doing a sequenced event, and then I am having to end my day mid event
That's right.
in order to appease the time cycle because or else I'm going to screw myself up by passing out.
Right.
And I'm like, that's silly and kind of stupid, but there's no like there's no way around it because or else you're just going to make the entire in base bits like not timed, which
Mm,
certain games do that, like Stardew Valley, a lot of those farming games, like you're inside a building sometimes, certain times like timer will stop for some games it won't. I think actually, now I think about it, I think Stardew might still do time. I think in the original Harvest Moon might
okay.
have stopped time when you went to inside buildings. So once again, it's a staple with these kind of games, and so it's not. It was just a kind of an annoyance slash a habit I had to get used to again. So yes, every time or like I needed like where am I supposed to go? So I quick paused. I went into the menu, looked at my tasks, then went to the map. And then when I went to the map, I realized, oh, your altar moves in real time though. Like will move while you're looking at the map, so you can see them go from one floor to
Mm-hmm.
the other. I'm like, that's kind of silly because time is allegedly stopped, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I hadn't
So
thought about that, but
anyways,
yeah, but that's annoying. I mean, it's annoying in a fun way. It's not super annoying, but it's like,
it's not a problem.
well,
It's just a habit you have
I'll
to get
need
used to.
to
It's a
like,
quirk.
it's like, oh, I need to go talk to this guy, and I'll see him. Oh, he just went up to the next level, and I'll have to. Or sometimes like he'll go into the elevator right as I'm going up to talk to him, and he like disappears. I'm like f, and I have to go like chase him down to go talk to him. It's never like a real problem, but it's just it's one of those sort of funny things. I will say that that the ramp up in this game is pretty good. Like this game gives you kind of it gives you new things to do often enough that you don't. At least I had never have never felt bored, and I've also never felt overwhelmed. So I think they do strike a really good balance there. Looking back on some of my time, I can tell I'd be like, you know, they really introduced that right at the right time because if I had to do like one or two more loops of what they're trying to get me to do there, I probably would have gotten like, okay, I get this. I'm just kind of ho humming it through here, and it's getting a little bit boring. So, props to them for getting it right at the right time. The only thing that I wanted to bring up is that this is from 11-bit Studios. They have done a lot of games, but the ones I can think of off the top of my head are This War of Mine, and Frostpunk 1 and Frostpunk 2. I've only played a tiny bit of This War of Mine, but I am kind of familiar of the loop of that game. I played a crap load of Frostpunk 1. Frostpunk 2 is like at the tippy top of my pile of shame. But like having played, having played Frostpunk and familiar with kind of the the modus operandi of these developers, this game fits into what they do pretty well. You can see the bones of their other games in this game, but it still manages to feel pretty different. And I'm I'm really uh, I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. And so I think too, like having played a significant amount of Frostpunk, being familiar with some of their other stuff, the running clock is a bit. I can see how that would be a little bit irritating or irksome. But having played their other games, it makes sense for the way that they think about things. They really are trying to get you to. They really are trying to find kind of the breaking point for like the average player, where it's like you're riding that knife's edge through this game, being like, okay, I want to do this, but I need to do that, and kind of how to balance everything. That's very much a big aspect of Frostpunk, is not being able to play the game perfectly, and how that is still how that is like makes it actually more fun in some ways. So yeah, that's
I mean, so it is a point of tension, right?
mm-hmm,
And it's meant to build tension and suspense. But the reason why I brought it up was because for those who aren't expecting that, it could be an issue, but it's a one that's quickly solved by putting the game into the menu or pausing it, and so
mm-hmm,
you can
yes.
giving yourself a breather. And then because especially if those who suffer from like analysis paralysis or whatever, like what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? I like, and once again, for my issue is like I said, I kept on looking in the top corner. It tells me my tasks, but I'm like, oh wait, no, you're better off going into the menu, looking at tasks there, and then trying to figure out because some of the stuff isn't rightly like understandable in the beginning. Like it doesn't quite spell it out for you. No markers like, hey, pinging, go to this place or do this thing. So, some of it is very obvious, but some of it was a little less so. And then just pause a moment, wait, think, like, okay, look at the map. Okay, this is probably what I need to get this material, which means I have to go out of the ship, which I kind of know where some stuff is, but others you just have to freely explore. And then you just have to be aware, okay, I've been out this far. Now I got to make my way back to the ship. So if I can't make, you got to take that into consideration. Um, but yes, I guess that's we'll talk more about this next week. And yeah, but so far we're liking it a lot. It's a really solid game. It's a good way to come out swinging. And yeah, so that's it's what we've been playing so far, at least within this last week. All right, and so now for the news, Nick, what do you got for us?
Um, so probably the biggest thing is the Capcom Spotlight that just happened. As we are recording this on June 27th, this happened June 26th. And it wasn't particularly long. Was it like an hour or 45 minutes? Somewhere in there. And they kind of just went over some of their upcoming titles. Um, and some new stuff that they're adding to their existing titles. Um, and yeah, so not too much, but some of it was actually kind of more compelling. There were no new announcements here, as far as like, oh, here's a new game that we have a new date for, anything like that. But some interesting stuff about some stuff that I know I've found to be pretty compelling. First up was about Pragmata. Um, they kind of show some of the trailers that they have shown before about this game. They do have a little thing in here where they have a note, and that maybe this was in one of the other trailers and I just missed it, but they were like, yes, it's real, and it's coming in 2026. From that, they don't give a like a specific month and day release, but from what I'm seeing about this game, my guess is that this is probably a pretty early 2026 release. It looks pretty much done. It looks like, I mean, and there's certainly been enough time for it to have finished. And so I'm kind of guessing first quarter, maybe second quarter of 2026, but I'm also definitely hoping for first quarter 2026 because this game does look pretty good, and something that I definitely want to try. They go into a little bit of talking about kind of the gameplay loop of this, and that it is an action game, but it's also a puzzle game. It's like it's a puzzle action game, where you as a guy as the weapon wielder kind of shoot at enemies, but you can't really do any damage to them if their shields aren't down. Well, the android girl that you have on your back, she does the hacking and breaks down their shields. So then and that part is sort of this little mini puzzle thing, that has to happen before you can really do good damage to the enemy. And I was like, okay, that's definitely kind of unique and pretty cool looking. But Yeah. So the only thing that kind of makes me weird about that is as I wonder if the puzzle aspect is going to disrupt the flow of action and combat. It looks like it will probably be implemented pretty well, but it's something that gives me pause.
Yeah, I can see that taking a little bit too much time. But yeah, the trailer they showed for this Capcom Spotlight, it's actually the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same exact trailer they showed for the state of play that happened 3 weeks ago for PlayStation. Because yeah, that's the same. Especially since I was hoping that they would update the post-it note at the end, but they didn't. It's just the same thing because once again, this was originally announced years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the joke behind that. The the enemy they showed was lumbering at you, so it bought you enough. You had enough time, but that's going to be the trick is to you're gonna have to create enough distance between yourself and the enemy to be able to hack them. Granted, you could do a quick hack, I guess, and just point A to point B, kind of down and dirty. But one of the things is if you hit green nodes along the way, your hack becomes more efficient or does more damage or something like that. So it warrants you like going the long way around the hack and trying to get all the nodes properly. Um, it's it's different. It's once again everything else of the game looks like right up my alley. I guess I'm glad they're not doing the old like the tried and true pipes game like for mini games like they do in BioShock or something like that where like liquid or
Oh,
power is currently flowing and you have to move things on the fly to get like cuz that's always kind of annoying because it's been done to death or like for example like whenever you have a lock picking mini game it's always the Skyrim or like Bethesda hold the pin in one spot and then rotate your
it's
the
cliche
tumbler and
for a reason.
yes, because it's too hard to think of something new, and if the mechanic already exists, then why don't we just crib it? So, uh, yes. Anyways, it looks awesome. It seems like it's like I said that kind of fast ish gameplay and third person perspective, and it has a high enough polish on it. So at least the
Mm-hmm.
trailer does. M- yeah. Once again, I also hope that it's like early first quarter, 26. But honestly, it's too early to tell. There's been no other like they didn't give us any real extra information on it.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, outside like just more in-depth detail about the game itself. But like I don't know. At the same time, it's they're saying sometime 26. If they were confident on the first quarter bit, I would say they would have said so. So
Yeah.
my
If it
my
was like
concept is
January
it's probably
26th, they probably would have said by now. Maybe not. But yeah, you're probably right.
yeah. So I'm to be a realist. I'm like okay. Like earliest is going to be second quarter, probably realistically third quarter, if things go smoothly. you know,
Yeah.
so 2027 is what I'm saying. Realistically, 2027.
2029.
Next gen, PlayStation 6 launch game right
PlayStation
here. You heard it
6.5,
first.
PlayStation 6 Pro launch game.
All right. Anyways, okay. So yeah, what else they talk about the Capcom Spotlight?
Then they talk about Street Fighter 6, new characters. Sagat, Crimson Viper, and Alex are coming. And then they show kind of some like in-engine cinematics, I guess, of Sagat kind of doing stuff and punching things, and so it's a bit more of a showcase for him. But the other two characters are coming, so that and I think they probably talk about some other stuff, but I wasn't really paying too much attention. Though those things are the big news for Street Fighter Six, a game that I own and have barely played. But I have been thinking more about it, so I might start to fire that one up here soon. Um, then they talk about Kunitsugami, which is a game that I do want to play quite a bit. It's been on my list for a while. I don't know if or when I'll ever get a chance to, because I have heard this game is actually pretty dang good. It is coming to Switch too, so clap your hands for that. And then there's a new mode. I think it's sort of like it's like a infinite mode or uh, something. They talk a little bit about it. I missed what the actual title of it is, but it does seem to be like a horde mode or some kind of infinite zombies mode or something like that. So they're adding more things to a game that has already been pretty well received. Um,
Yeah, the 8-bit soundtrack,
oh right,
DLC stuff that they're throwing in was kind of fun. I like the trailer they gave for it. It got me more interested. Uh,
yeah,
I
it's
remember this game's also in Game Pass, if I remember correctly.
oh
So it
wow,
was a
okay.
Game Pass game.
Dang, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's even more cool. Yeah, the 8-bit stuff is sort of like, hey, what can we do to add a little bit of silly value to this? Just a little extra thing. And so I appreciate things like that. Um, then they talk about Onimusha as a franchise, talking about the remaster of Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny, and kind of upgrading that for modern consoles. So if you're into that, then you can go back and enjoy that classic game. And then they talk a bit more
Once
about.
again, we're one game away from fucking Jean Reno being remastered in a game now because Onimusha 3 has Jean Reno in it. So yeah, let's do that. Let's make this happen. We're so close. Don't
we
care about 1 and 2. Go with 3.
we we have to make Jean Reno great again. So yeah, that will be cool. I have nothing against Jean Reno. In fact, I very much like him quite a bit. And then they talk a little bit about the new Onimusha game, Way of the Sword. Kind of show. I don't think they showed anything new from it. Just saying, hey, we're still gonna release this, and so that I'm actually kind of excited about. That looks pretty cool. I don't know when it's coming out exactly, and even when it does come out, I don't know how I'm gonna fit it into my life, but it does look pretty cool. So they did show a bit more of that. Then they went into they did a bit more of a deep dive on their other properties here. They showed quite a bit uh, more little trailer spots for Resident Evil Requiem. And so they showed more footage, and they showed snippets of interviews to kind of pique your interest in the game. And they said that these interviews are cut from longer versions of the interviews that are going to be uploaded or shown elsewhere. I don't remember where, though. I'm wondering if it's just going to pop up on YouTube for you to go watch, or how they're going to uh, uh, bring these out. But yeah, that kind of made me go, okay, maybe I'll want to go and look some more on that. But yeah, Resident Evil Requiem definitely looks good. It looks so they said that this one is going to be the first one in 10 years to continue the Raccoon City narrative. So like what happened after the events that happened there, they're going kind of forward with that. So I guess that would mean that Resident Evil 6 was the last one?
6. 6.
Okay, so
Yeah, that
because
one was yeah, that was a bad game.
yeah, yes, it has its proponents. I have seen people who do say that they did like it, but anyway, because 7 and 8 and then all the remakes and stuff like that, those have not really touched on anything, going forward. They've been good games, but they haven't touched on anything going forward. So this will do some of that, and it does look pretty chilling. Yeah. So then,
Yeah, still no VR announcement yet. So that's the VR community really kind of hoping, clamoring for that because 7 and 8, or Village, were great VR games, and then of course when they remake the remake of 4, really solid. So
yeah, I have no doubt that it'll end up on VR. I hope that it ends up on PSVR too, but yeah, they seem to. It seems to be the kind of game that really lends itself. I mean, horror in general is just, it goes to 11. The fear factor goes to 11 whenever it's in VR. Then they talk a big bunch about Monster Hunter Wilds. There's a big update coming, and that's also here. And they also show the roadmap. So There's a title update one where they kind of bring out some stuff. Mizutsune, Zo Shiha, and Grand Hub, and then there's a Street Fighter 6 special collaboration that is out now. So that was I guess that came out on 6/26, and then there is a probably it looks even bigger to me update that is starting June 30th, Monday, where they have a bunch of monsters coming. Then a seasonal event starting July 23rd, and then some more bits of that coming out July 30th and then August 27th. And then there's a late September additional monster update that will be coming as well. So they are definitely continuing to support the game big time, and showing their roadmap. They also had some people come on and kind of do some interviews and stuff. It was probably about the last half of the show was sort of just them talking about Monster Hunter and their plans for that. So yeah, big good news if you like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I stopped playing a while ago. So
Yeah, yeah, I have some things to say about Monster Hunter that I will reserve for the Game of the Year deliberations that we shall have. Yep. So anyway,
all right.
so that's it for the Capcom Spotlight. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Like I said, there wasn't a whole. I mean, I know they recently did a Monster Hunter thing where they brought like Akuma into it, and then they had so you can get a character skin for Akuma, do some skills like him, and then they did. I'm trying to remember now. I think your Palico could dress up as Blanca. Uh, so that was pretty silly. And I believe that yeah, the new updates, part two of the updates coming up soon, but I know some friends who got really into it, completely got to the end, and they're like, okay, well, now that we're at the end, they bounced. I mean, like, well, there's nothing else for them to do. So I'm more curious to see if people like that will get back into it again after these new updates, or is it just that done for them? Because if you can't pull the old existing fans back in, it's going to be really tough, I think. So I'm interested in seeing how that plays out.
Okay. Yeah. And then we had some Beat Saber stuff. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, all right. So this happened. I think this news dropped a little bit right before we recorded last week, and we just slipped our mind, and we didn't get to put it in there. So yeah, Beat Saber will no longer get content for PSVR and PSVR 2, and the multiplayer they'll be dropping multiplayer by the end of next year. So or in next year, I should say. So, according later on, it was clarified that uh, they'll no longer be supporting multiplayer starting of January 21st, 2026. So, this of course spiked off a lot of like articles, like oh the Doom nail for the PlayStation VR 2, and it's oh woe is the end of days and all this stuff for their system. It's it makes for good headline and clickbait, but
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it sucks because Beat Saber was making so much money. I'm pretty sure Beat Saber is now owned by Meta, so it makes sense that they're going to be staying. Like they're trying to just move that strictly towards them. And it's been almost 2 years since or so since it was brought out originally, like a little bit more than 2 years, I think, than on the PlayStation VR too. So it was one of those things that they probably struck a deal, said, "Hey, like, why don't you update to PSVR 2 and stick around for X amount?" And the contract finished, more than likely. And then they're like, "Okay, we're not going to pay the amount you need to stay," or the other company's just like, no, we want to, Meta wants to siphon it off, which would seems very meta to do. Is like to uh, cut off the nose to spite the face. It's one of those things that people in the VR space are very much in agreement. Usually, we don't do console wars. Console war concept, exclusive stuff shouldn't really be a thing. Though it's weird coming from someone who has a PSVR, so because Sony doesn't really release their stuff other, but they're starting to. So hopefully they'll start to release some um, other things on, like, but most of the games you can probably get on PlayStation VR are already available on other platforms. And that's the thing, is like the Batman game that a lot of people considered game of the year last year
Mm.
for VR. Um, that is a Quest only, like a MetaQuest exclusive. And VR community is so weak that they should just stand united in order to try to help themselves and promote the things for the, like, as a collective. Uh, it shouldn't, like I said, it shouldn't be a bickering over, like, it's not the console wars, okay? At least that's the way it should be. But
Yeah.
anyways, meta's meta. They'll do what they want to do.
Well, yeah, and this has been the consensus view for a good while. Since before 2020. I know that the VR industry is still it's better than it used to be because there's just more games and the games are better. It's a better technology, than it used to be, but it's still a fledgling industry, and it could still go the way of the dodo pretty quickly if things didn't go quite right. I understand Meta wanting to kind of protect their IP and stuff like that. When you have somebody like Sony who has been slow to play nice with others, slower than everybody else, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, like in my opinion, it would be harder for Sony to kind of explain that they're going to play nice in VR, but they're not going to play nice in anything else. And by play nice, I mean VR games should really all be cross console compatible, cross generation compatible, as much as is technologically feasibly possible. There should be no glass ceilings or glass doors between any of this stuff on VR because the industry needs to be able to, to survive. That right now is priority number one. We need to protect the watering hole. And so nobody kill each other at the watering hole. When there's a lot more watering holes and we don't need to worry about that, then yeah, maybe we can revise that bylaw. But yeah, I mean it's sort of just kind of the way the business goes right now. And once PSVR 2 is fully sunset more or less, or kind of just becomes too old to really play the good games or whatever. Uh, then I'm gonna go for like a Meta or whatever is the hot best console for VR. So I'm not too worried about it, but yeah, it's something to take note of to be sure.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the fact that Sony opened their system up to be able to be adapted to a PC, so you can use your
Yes.
headset there, like, that's the right move. That's what you do. You kind of open those borders, and yeah, you bridge that stuff. But whatever. Sony. Another bit of news is that happened this week is Sony had kind of highlighted 4 games coming out for the PlayStation VR 2. So kind of like on the heels of this whole, like, we lost Beat Saber, but we still have plenty of things coming out. And one of it is Dreams of Another. This is Pixel Junk, their new game. So this was shown before as well, in their state of play, but they go in more depth about it a little bit more. This is that dreamlike game where everything is like pixel dots, and it showed like you holding up and like an AK or something like that, a machine gun, and shooting and like destroying the pixel dreamlike world, and it kind of remapping and reforming. Um, they talk a little bit so there's more information about that if you really want to go into it. There's one called Meteora, and it's essentially, it reminds me of uh Amplitude. I think it's Amplitude. It's one of the rhythm based games, but this is you're a meteor flying through space. Kind of has that it didn't really strike it too much with me, but it's kind of your grid or your map is, essentially a lanes going into the distance, and your meteor has to either, I guess, collide with things or avoid things. So you're rotating like a cylinder path that you're on, and that is the, I guess, the crux of the play. But it looks really good. So it's kind of a game that you kind of play and kind of get in the zone of, I suppose. I need to
Okay.
look more into it or see more as it comes out to be really interested in that. Um, they had this other really neat game called Grit and Valor. Grit and Valor, 1949. It's a alternative um, like World War scenario. You have different uh, troops and like kind of steampunk mech version of the world, and it's a kind of like a grid-based RTX. Uh, RTX. I'm sorry, grid-based.
RTS.
Um, yeah. Well, I meant to say like kind of a not quite Command and Conquer style, but it's just a tactics-based game.
I know you're an AMD
And
shill.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh, well, actually, that's something we forgot to mention in the news too. Real quick, AMD locked it down, or so Microsoft locked down AMD. Um, it's been official.
Oh
They're going to
wow.
be rolling AMD in the future. Yeah, complete
Dang, that's
for the
big
next
news.
gen. I mean, it kind of works well with the fact that you mentioned, or during the ROG Ally bit, they're using AMD in that, but they went on to talk about how AMD is going to be used for the processor, and they have multiple AMD chips and Radeon going to be in the new next Microsoft hotness, whatever that is. They didn't really talk much about it. There's two different press conferences. One was or news statements. One was given by Microsoft, and then there was more information given by AMD themselves. But there wasn't. It's a lot of it's just kind of like, yeah, we're doing the thing. We're making the thing. We're partnering together. The important part about the AMD news, real quick, is the fact that because they're using AMD still, this will still let the new generation be backwards compatible. To what extent? To what does that mean? We don't really know. So it doesn't. If it's a disc, hopefully it's still going to be disc based, and then hopefully you can use your old discs. Or do they mean it's only going to be backwards compatible with digital market, or is it only going to be with cloud? Who knows? But because it's all AMD architecture from as far back, you can then it won't like if they had happen to switch to Nvidia, um, therefore you would lose all the backwards compatibility, or at least it would be obscenely difficult to work your way around that. But because they're going with AMD again, Microsoft can theoretically provide backwards compatibility. But that was one of the big reasons why I went with the Xbox Series X, because it runs discs, it's backwards compatible, and I skipped the Xbox One generation, so I can still play my Xbox 360 physical media on my Series X,
Right.
almost all my games. So, anyways, side tangent. But anyways, Grit and Valor looks like a neat game for the VR. Um, and it's something that will I get it's supposed to come out August 21st, Steam version as well, so that's good. Uh, then the last game they mentioned was, um, but it's by the company, or it's by the guys who made Manifold Garden, which is a game I always thought should be in VR, but they said that it's for what they want. It's not a VR game, but it's one of those was that MC Escher painting kind of things where like things look like illusions, and it's a mind trickery of like how things look, like the infinite staircase going up, through each other type of thing. So they play with space like that. Well, this game is from those guys, and it's called Hotel Infinity, and it's kind of the same concept of like you're working in a hotel, or at least you're in a hotel. You open a door, and it's different from you look around the corner, and it's not what you see from when you look inside, and it's going to be a lot of um, quirky perspective manipulation. Uh, there's not really much else really to go on it. It's just a quick little bit, but it's like a minute and a half long trailer. Um, but I'm excited for it because, like I said, Manifold Garden always looked cool. Never played it, but I always thought it'd be awesome in VR. Now that they're doing a VR thing, yeah, totally in for it. So
Okay.
yeah, so PSVR, or VR in general is not dead, but PSVR 2 is still announcing things and bringing things to the world. So no need to freak out. Uh, games are still
It's
good.
it's
Have
just
fun.
it's just video games. There will be more. It's gonna be okay.
Right. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, Stalker 2's modding software is 700 gigabytes. So
Why?
why not?
Is it
Because
is it because they're working with Activision and this is secretly a Call of Duty mod? What? You know.
I mean that wouldn't surprise me. I just saw that on Kotaku and I was like, that is buck wild, man. I mean, I don't know what the kids are putting in their computers for SSDs these days, but I know I have and I know I have a couple SSDs that are just a terabyte. So to have a basically a whole solid state drive dedicated to Stalker 2's, almost completely dedicated to Stalker 2's modding software. I mean, if you're living that kind of life, I want to shake your hand and give you an interview.
Man, yeah, for sure. You should be able to play Stalker 2 and have all the NPCs like modded to anime peoples and stuff or something like that. And then you can be you can be running rolling around with your favorite harem or something.
It might just be that it's like not optimized or it. I mean, like everything is you know, assets are big and you know Stalker 2 is a pretty new game and stuff like that. So it could just be, hey, this is you're kind of, I mean, you're basically doing video game development in some ways. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's the last little thing that I wanted to talk about.
That's funny. All right. Well, guys, you made it to the end. We appreciate it. Thank you. This has been another Dead Pixel, episode 132. Nick, what are some words of wisdom you have for the people out there?
Um, you shouldn't work on your own fireworks, but in case you do, make sure that you have a balloon on a drawstring above your head when you're above your workspace, so that if things start to get a little out of hand, you can pull that drawstring and just dump a whole bunch of water right on what you're doing.
Yeah, and just because you put the firework under a bucket, don't think because you sit on it, that bucket's gonna protect you. Okay, it won't.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, once again, this is ADP. Until next time, take it easy.
Bye.